Welcome. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Monroe County Public Library. Welcome back. It's good to see everybody after our long absence. We forgot how we usually do things. We start introducing ourselves, and if you care to share what you're reading, you mind starting us off, David?
Look at my last book. From David Ferguson. Boy, the last thing I was halfway through Water for Elephants.
Oh, that's a good book.
It's great listening to it. It's great.
My name is Kari Essery, and I am reading Lilac Girls.
My name is Chris Harrison, and I've been listening to 24 Hours in Nowhere by Dusty Bowling.
I'm John Walsh. I'm reading Paul, a biography. It's a biography of St. Paul by N.T. Wright.
I'm Marilyn Wood, and I just picked up the latest Christian book, The Guardians. I haven't even opened it yet.
Kathy Loser, and I'm reading the Yamas and Nayamas, something to help me during COVID.
I'm Jamie Burkhart, and I just finished Zaretta Hammond's Cultural Responsivity and Teaching in the Brain.
I'm Fred Reisinger, and I'm on the last chapter of the autobiography of Willie Nelson.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Our first item is a very large consent agenda in which we would approve minutes, monthly financial reports, monthly bills for payment, personnel reports from April, May, and June. All those for April, May, and June, March, April, May, and June 2020, and our board meeting calendar. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion, comments?
I would just like to thank Marilyn for sending those out in a timely manner and interspersed.
I had a couple items just to ask about that were the Bounds flooring
Yes.
was expensive.
That was the recarpeting, like for this meeting room carpet and
Oh.
all around the library that we did from about October on until January.
And out of curiosity, what is SIHO, S-I-H-O?
It's our health insurance.
Oh, okay.
Southern Indiana Health.
Any other questions? All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And next, our director's report for February, March, April, and May.
So, yeah, it's been a while, right? When we last met for our monthly business meeting, it was February 19th. And if you might recall, we were considering our checkout policy related to the elimination of fines, overdue fines. That seems like a very long time ago, but it really was just the last time we met. But since then, and in your packet, you have February, March, April, and May. And we were open for the month of February. And in terms of library use, things were going well, and the teens were beginning to settle in. The use of the new tween space, which we had added when we did the carpeting and the updates in the children's center. February, we had 12 staff members who attended the Public Library Association, and they attended things everywhere from strategic planning workshops to programming workshops to staff inclusion and decision-making and many other things. And then March came, and March was not as busy as a typical March was. Even in the beginning, people were beginning to stop coming in and browsing, and the attendance at our programs fell quite a bit. People just weren't venturing out as much. And then As we all know, a couple of weeks in, things began to close, and we closed on March 13th was the last day that we were open, and there were many unknowns when we closed then. But the one thing we knew in terms of service for the community was that we were really going to have to ramp up in our digital access. And so immediately, we took some steps to expand our access to some of our most popular e-library platforms. We expanded Hoopla access by $200 a day, and we've seen a corresponding increase in the number of downloads and streams. People are making use of it. The typical monthly canopy limits were raised from 10 to 20 streams, and the system-wide streaming limits went from $500 a month to an unlimited use, which is just the way that they do their access plans. But canopy use has nearly tripled over the last 3 months. We added streaming to our longstanding Freegal downloads, and that has increased by 250%. Freegal, downloadable music service. And we've also expanded our Mango course offerings to include more languages and more coursework for the languages that already existed. And finally, we expanded RB Digital, which is the e-magazine service, and now it includes all the available titles, and that resulted in a 100% increase in monthly use. So at this point in time, we're looking at our 2021 budget for collections and really taking into consideration what that might mean with expanded use to e-resources, and with the assumption that much of that e-resource use will continue, because we also know that through this, we were distributing access cards for people. I don't know the total number, but several hundred over the course of those months to people who didn't have access to the library previously and now have access to those resources and have learned to love them. Overdrive and World Book added free access to specific titles. They have a tentative expiration date and sometime in August or September, and we were really just waiting to hear from them whether or not that might be extended. But in addition to that, as I said, we began issuing temporary library cards. We began phone and chat service. And since then, as we've continued to phase services in, we've expanded to include book lists, virtual programming. We've created tutorials. CATS continues to cover government meetings. Vital Tutors have gone online, and they're doing online tutoring. We've done a ton of promotion. You've probably seen it all over on our web, newsletters, in the HT, WFIU has covered us, IDS, Bloom, and many, many social media posts just to keep people aware of both the services that are available to them from their homes and ways in which they can continue to be involved with access to the library. We began curbside service on May 26th here at the main library, and we began on June 8th access at both Ellettsville and through the Bookmobile. Last week, in those services, we checked out over 6,700 items, and there were 1,273 patrons who made use of that service. We've also continued our partnering relationships and continuing to work with other social service agencies in particular who are struggling in some of the same ways that we are in ways to meet the community's needs. But we continue to work with Stone Belt, with RBB and MCCSC, with Monroe County Smart Start, and many others. So beyond that and beyond those services, our planning continues here in the library. We continue to plan for strategic roadmap for the branch, and we are doing tons of maintenance work, which was reported in the April director's report. You can see that, and we can talk about those things as well if you have any questions. And in addition, summer reading began on June 1st. Lisa is here, and she'll be telling us more about that. But already, and I'm going to steal some of your thunder, over 200,000 minutes have been reported by our community of readers, which was our bicentennial goal. And already we're there in 2 weeks. So any questions about all of those months' activities? Yes, Kari.
So could you just reiterate the hours that you can call the library just if anyone's watching and wants to know that sort of information.
At present, it is 10 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. Those hours will expand on June 29th. And it will be evening and weekend hours at that time, and we'll post those hours in advance so people will be aware.
Other questions for Marilyn? Well, thank you for all the work you and the whole staff, through this challenging time and doing all that you described to make sure we keep delivering library services to the community even when we can't have them in the building.
I have a question. Do you, or do the library world in general think that this will a little bit change to having more people use online services now that they're used to things?
Yes, I think everyone does. I think that certainly we've always talked about how people didn't know what we did or some of the things that we did, and I know that many of the phone conversations that staff had were teaching people how to make use of those electronic resources or just explaining to them what was available. So I do expect that will continue and expand. People still love books, so I don't expect that to go away by any means, but I do think that there are more people who are aware of services that they can get remotely, and they will continue to do that.
Anything else? Our next item under old business is an update on our strategic roadmap from Jane Cronkite.
Hello, everybody. I've been reading, I just finished my I'm still working on my Bean Stack goal, but that's our summer reading program. If you haven't signed up, it's super easy to participate. So it's on our website. I encourage you to do it. There's other fun things you can do to do your reading activities too. So there's a report in your packet this month about the roadmap process. We have a team that's been meeting via Zoom since April to do this planning process. We conducted a staff survey about their ideas for service implementation that we could ask for community input on. And then we just launched our community survey online yesterday, I believe it was. And then we're going to be doing a lot to promote that survey about getting some community feedback. So we'll make copies of the survey available on paper, promote it on social media. We're going to be doing mailers, some postcard mailers out into the community. And then once staff is back on site full time, we're going to be doing some trainings about how to do community conversations with like our partner organizations that we work with. So there's a lot we're going to do to ensure that we get some good community feedback. The survey is going to be available all summer through about mid-August. Then once we hope we get a lot of input from the community about this, about what they want to see from the library over the next few years, then we'll start to draft what that roadmap looks like and then have something to present to you by the end of this year. So do you have any questions about that process? Yeah.
Is the survey currently now on the library's website?
It is. Yeah, so mcpl.info/survey. So I encourage all of you to take it. It takes about 10 minutes. And please pass it along to your family and your friends and encourage folks to take it. There's questions if folks are heavy library users or if they're not library users to let us know why they don't use the library. So we're hoping to engage with a lot of people. Any other questions?
Thank you, Jane.
All right, thank you.
Now we move on to new business, and there's an item to add to the agenda. We have these 4 months of documents, and our attorney, Tom Bunger, advised us that if we want to, we can approve a motion that would authorize me to sign for the whole board so we don't have to pass these all around, both for efficiency and safety, I guess. So if there is a motion to that effect, now would be the time.
I move to have John Walsh, President of the Library Board, sign the documents for all 4 months on behalf of the board.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And then our next item is declaration of a fiscal body. Could you explain this to us, please, Gary?
Yes. This resolution to designate the Monroe County Council as the fiscal body for the library is the result of some new legislation this past year. So one of the events that would trigger a situation where the Monroe County Council would do a binding review is if our budget increase was more than the growth quotient. And we don't plan to do that in the foreseeable future. So this resolution is not going to have a lot of impact on us. Another situation that could trigger a binding review is if the cash fund balance in the funds that are supported by tax revenue, if that balance goes over 150% of the library's budget, that could trigger a binding review. And that's another one where I don't see that happening for the library. So the budget's roughly 10 million, so we would have to get to a cash balance of 15 million, and that's not going to happen.
Just remind us what our current cash balance is.
It's about 10,
Okay.
close.
And that's maybe higher than it might have been, than it had been in the past because of the planning for the branch.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
And this is actually an update to legislation that they passed last year, which was very difficult to understand and required that libraries' fiscal body be associated with their founding institution. And we didn't even know what that was for Monroe County. So this was meant to be able to a library to be able to say, and the county council will also have to sign this as the fiscal agent. The other thing that they did as part of this rewrite of the law was to add some information about how that 150% was calculated, because depending upon the time of year, libraries, after they get a payment, might have a lot more money than they would have as the year progresses. So it was meant to be to show transparency, but not in a way to get you.
Thanks, Gary, and we'll see if there's any other questions when we get to discussion. So I'll read this resolution. It's not too long, and then see if there's a motion to approve it. Declaration of Fiscal Body, Monroe County Public Library. Whereas library officials typically submit the library's annual budget for non-binding review by a separate fiscal body pursuant to the provisions of IC 6-1.1-17, and whereas under certain conditions designated in IC 6-1.1-17-20.3 and 20.4, the library's budget is subject to binding review and adoption by a separate fiscal body. And therefore, this report identifies the fiscal body that would do any binding budget adoption in the event such binding adoption is required under the provisions of IC 6-1.1-17-20.3 or 20.4. In the case of a triggering event under those ICs, which requires the library to submit its budget to a separate fiscal body for binding budget adoption, The fiscal body that is responsible for that binding adoption is the Monroe County Council. Do we have a motion to approve that resolution?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions for Gary about this?
So does the council, the Monroe County Council, know this is being done?
They also have to sign, I have to sign it,
Okay.
and then they have to sign
Okay.
it to acknowledge it, so yes.
Okay.
All in favor of approving this declaration of fiscal body, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And next, we have an update to the purchase and sales agreement for branch property.
So when we began this process, we had, for purchase of the Southwest Branch property, we had a closing date of June 19th. In the last couple of weeks, the county has determined that we need to apply for a subdivision for that property, and that process will take several months to complete. So this requires an extension on our closing date of the purchase and sales agreement. Then as we go through that process, we'll be able to consider design elements and environmental impacts. Linda Thompson, a senior environmental planner with the city, we've been in touch, and she's happy to advise on some of the planning as well. And then prior to the purchase of the property, we would determine the actual site and building locations. There is an addendum in the packet which shows a new sight lines for the property and drawings for parking lot and building, but that is conceptual only. It does not represent the final building or site plans. I did include in the document, the branch planning document, what that process for going through a subdivision actually looks like in Monroe County. But the document today is just an amendment to the purchase agreement that we would sign so that we would still be, our new closing date would be November 30th or before.
Do we have a motion to approve the update to the purchase and sales agreement for the branch property?
So moved. Second.
And do we have questions or comments on that? Who signs the amendment then?
You do.
Okay.
I don't want to bring up an elephant in the room, but have we been getting much more resistance to the sale of this and taking down the children's trees?
There's been some additional conversation about the trees and the environmental, I don't remember exactly what their title is. There are two groups in Bloomington who had considered writing a letter. And it was the discussion that I had with Linda Thompson. She just wanted to know a little bit more about what our planning was. And I described for her that what we've done so far is strictly conceptual and that we will be having those conversations and talks. So we are still at a place where we're very much, we have no idea what that impact can be or will be at this point because we don't yet know exactly what the lines of our property are and the things that still have to come before us to make that plan.
And I'm guessing that it will be very thoughtfully done.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Is Ms. Thompson volunteering her time to work with us for the planning?
She is also, she works for county planning as their environmental planner, city planning. So this is actually a county property, but she said she would be happy to work with us.
That's great.
Any information about the kind of the encroachment of the roundabout on the said property, or has that already been taken care of?
There, in the drawing, the plan that we have here was from the CAD drawing that they have, Structure Point has worked on. It was the delay that we had from the very start, and they only gave us this a couple of weeks ago, so we simply didn't know what that might look like. They say that at this point, the project plan, which includes all of Fullerton Pike, is about 40% complete, but they feel like this portion of it is complete. And there is a meeting on July 6th that that Lisa Ridge from the county highway has asked Bill Riggert, our site surveyor, John West, our broker, me, Christine Matthew, and the school to attend. So we'll know more there to find out just exactly if anything else is going to change or if it's the way it should be.
Just out of curiosity, is the roundabout taking any trees too?
I don't think so, because it took the part that we might have moved away from them on some, and it is likely that it will reduce the total amount of property that we get because it took off a chunk of it on the corner. But we can move east somewhat, so again, not really knowing what that topography is going to turn out, and actually how it'll actually affect it.
One more question. So on the plans, it says library expansion. Is that going to happen in the initial plan, or is that a later, a
That's
possible later?
Future planning.
Possible. Nice, good, yeah, good.
Any other questions? All in favor of approving the update to the purchase and sales agreement for branch property, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And then, this is not on the agenda, but probably for my benefit, in these documents to sign was snuck in a resolution declaring certain property surplus. Is that,
Well, that's from an earlier board meeting. It was on the agenda. I think it may have been on the March board meeting agenda, but it's a pretty standard. I think there's a few computers on there. So, Tom, can we?
so we'll add that to the agenda. And it's a resolution declaring certain property surplus, 5 computers. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
I move we declare that property surplus.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
I had one question. John, do you have the paperwork you need to sign for that land agreement? I may have to go print that off if we don't have it here.
It wasn't in,
Okay, I didn't realize that was one.
I've got one.
Okay.
and we move on to our normally monthly, but it's been a while, update of this month, Children's Services and the 2020 Summer Reading Program. Lisa Ciampelli. Welcome, Lisa.
Hello, welcome. I think since I'm the last speaker tonight, I'm going to take my mask off to make sure you can hear me. My name is Lisa Ciampelli, and I serve as the children's strategist for the library. And thank you for inviting me to share with you an update of Children's Services. I am fortunate to work with a marvelous team of colleagues who specialize in library services to children and their caregivers. And even during this pandemic, they have been striving to connect young people with library materials and engage with them in thoughtful and meaningful ways. If you haven't had a chance yet, I encourage you to visit the library's YouTube channel and view the variety of programs posted there for children and families to enjoy anytime. Limited to producing 2 to 3 programs per week, the children's librarians decided to offer a short story time for preschoolers, a creative activity for young children, and an activity geared to older school-age children. Staff have been mindful of the resources that a family might have or not have in their homes at this time to use for crafting, and still managed to come up with fun activities such as creating a sensory bag for preschoolers and a Geo-Dragon egg for older children. You'll find these and other programs listed in the May Director's Report with data indicating how popular these virtual programs have been. And I just want to note the creative energy that it takes to do any type of public presentation or performance, and but learning how to record yourself, how to set up your home environment so that it's conducive to recording, What you don't see posted is the hours spent planning and preparing and practicing to make sure that that final recording goes smoothly. So I just would really like to give a special acknowledgement to the extra effort that has gone in to making this programming available by the Children's Services staff, as well as our top-notch communications and marketing team that provides expert editing and make sure that those things get uploaded in a timely fashion. Some other behind-the-scenes work that staff have been doing from home include updating our book list to indicate which titles are available in e-format and developing new book lists in response to current events, such as the list with recommended titles for talking about race with children. Children's Services staff also have developed literacy activity sheets and have packed them into envelopes, making them available at curbside pickup at the Main and Ellettsville libraries. Staff also have been taking time to develop their own skills, such as learning Spanish and American Sign Language, in order to help better serve our patrons. What can we do to better serve our community is always top of mind. This last fall and winter, before the pandemic struck, the children's area at the main library was renovated with shelving spaced out to create wider aisles and a newly designated tween space. And just as we were ramping up our activities for tweens and welcoming children and families back into the enhanced children's area, everything shut down. It's what we needed to do at the time to best serve our community, to help keep people safe, and to give staff time to figure out how we could continue to help people read, learn, connect, and create, even when they could not come into the library. And coincidentally, it was just before beloved children's librarian Stephanie Holman retired. I'm sure that had nothing to do with the need to just shut everything down for a little while, close up shop. Now, spring is usually the time of year that Children's Services staff visit individual schools and classrooms to invite children to take part in the library's summer reading game, an essential and popular activity, our means for engaging with children, encouraging them to continue reading for fun, helping them build out their reading skills over the summer, and continuing to practice what they've learned during the school year. Instead, this spring, we were compelled to reimagine the summer reading game. We typically have more than 3,000 children visit the library during the summer to pick up a printed summer reading game board. In March, we found ourselves pondering how could we serve those children and families if we were not able to invite them back into the library this summer. How could we provide reading materials to children who cannot access our e-library collections? And when there are so many critical needs in our community at this time, what could Monroe County Public Library do to help? Recognizing that many in our community have embraced our e-library resources and do have the means to engage with us online, we signed on with Beanstack, which provides an online platform for conducting summer reading games and other reading and learning challenges. Beanstack allowed us to replicate some of the literacy activities and reader's advisory suggestions that we would normally provide during visits to the library. It also allowed us to create a game where participants could earn points for their reading and doing other activities, a game structure we have used in previous years in which we felt many of our readers would already be familiar with, where you read for a certain amount of time, earn points, and receive some rewards for those activities. Now, at the time we were figuring out how to set up the reading games in Beanstack, we could not be sure that we would have the ability to award physical prizes to our participants. How could we arrange for thousands of children to choose their prize book if they could not come in and see them and touch them? We pondered a variety of scenarios, including mailing prize books to recipients, until one of the children's librarians proposed donating more gift books back out into the community and helping to build out our community of readers. Now, for the last several years, the Children's Summer Reading Game has included a Reader to the Rescue component. When children reached a certain point milestone, they achieved Reader to the Rescue status, and we used some of our summer reading funding from the Friends of the Library to make a donation to a community organization in honor of our readers. This incorporates an act of charitable giving into the summer reading game and provides an opportunity for children to see themselves as helpers. Past recipients have included the Monroe County Humane Association and People in Animal Learning Services, among others. This year, we decided to expand on the Reader to the Rescue concept and invite all of our readers, children's, teen, and adults, to participate on behalf of Hoosier Hills Food Bank, which serves thousands of families in our county and people of all ages by supplying multiple food pantries and direct donations of food to people in need. To help serve the children and families who may not have means to access our e-library, we decided to embed additional Reader to the Rescue rewards in all the summer reading games and make donations of books to local daycares and organizations such as the Boys and Girls Clubs and Kids City that are operating this summer, providing essential childcare and connecting in person with children. We also provided Community Kitchen with a supply of books that their staff graciously offered to share with children they see during their daily lunch deliveries. And we're in the process of restocking little free libraries around the county and establishing deposit collections in laundromats. Our online summer reading game also includes opportunities for individual participants to earn prizes through raffle drawings, but instead of seeking donations of coupons from the local businesses who have so generously supported us in previous years, this year we again used some of our funding from the Friends to purchase gift cards from local businesses, as well as other prizes such as a Kindle Fire and Launchpad tablets. So far, just a little more than 2 weeks into the summer reading game, there are more than 650 children between the ages of 0 to 12 enrolled in the Beanstack Summer Reading Game. And through the combined participation of readers in the Children, Teens, and Adults game, as Marilyn mentioned, we have already met the community-wide reading goal. And so on behalf of our readers who logged 200,000 minutes of reading time, the Friends of the Library will make a $2,000 donation to Hoosier Hills Food Bank. It has been gratifying to check the Beanstack landing page and watch the tally of active readers and reading logged, the time that's been logged, continue to increase. It provides a way for us to see our community participating in summer reading activities. And I'm sure I speak for all MCPL staff when I say how much we miss seeing people in person. Children's staff especially miss talking with kids, answering their questions, and hearing their stories. Imagine Your Story is the theme of the summer reading game this year, and it's a wonderful theme for all ages, but especially relevant for helping encourage children to make their own reading choices, express their creativity, and think about who they want to be. The activity tracks we incorporated into the Beanstack Summer Reading Game include some suggestions for ways that children can be curious, be creative, and be kind, and a place where children or their caregivers can note what they learned, what they created, or what kind thing they did. And I wanted to share with you just some of the notes we have received from children through the Beanstack system about the activities they've engaged in. I'm curious about how to be a spy. I made a spy kit with binoculars, makeup for disguises, and a notebook. I like to observe my family and neighborhood. I learned about a green bean turning into bean sprout by adding water in a few days. Amazing. I am curious about George Floyd and what exactly happened to him. I made a Lego camping car. It took about 40 minutes. First it broke a lot, and then it just worked fine. I built a frog habitat using plants, water, rocks, mud, and of course, tadpoles. Me and my friend saved the tadpoles from drying up in the mud. I turned my little library into a little food pantry. I always fill it and make sure lots of things are in it. It has been this way since March. I wrote to my teacher and gave her a thank you note. We helped pull weeds at the Bloomington Community Orchard. I talked with my grandma. I love talking to her and I miss her very much. I helped clean up trash from the ground and put it in the right place it should be in. I learned how important it is to help people. I learned by doing these activities. These notes help remind that libraries are more than the books and information resources they contain. Public libraries are for the people and about the people and the stories they have to tell. Our buildings, as full as they are with books, feel very empty right now. And while we prepare for how to bring children and families back into the library as safely as possible, we'll continue to find ways to engage with children, support their needs, and help them imagine and tell their own stories. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Questions for Lisa? Comments?
I just want to say I love the giving back idea. I mean, that's just, I think when Marilyn wrote about it, it's just top-notch. It's wonderful. Thank you for
It
doing
is,
that.
well, an idea that some of the children's librarians suggested a couple years ago, and it's been, nice to be able to expand on it this summer, and we have the means to do that because of the support of our friends of the library. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks for all the children's services work and for, in the challenging situation, building a successful summer reading program.
Thank you. I've learned a lot this summer as well. Thanks.
It's now time for public comment. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the board, please come to the podium. Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn? All in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.